during the preseason, before we talk about the actual season, out in Springfield, Massachusetts, there was the Hall of Fame enshrinement, the class of 2024. Shout out to Simone Augustus. Shout out to Chauncey Billups. Shout out to Michael Cooper and the other members of that class. But of course, you know what's coming. Shout out to half man, half amazing. Vince Carter is officially a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame. No surprise to me, no surprise to you. 25,000 points, couple All-NBA nods, 8-time NBA All-Star, was the leading vote getter. So much to say about what Vince Carter meant for the game, what he meant for the game in the country of Canada, what he meant for so many different franchises, and how he redefined his career over 22 years, which was an NBA record until Tuesday when LeBron James ties it. But when I talk to you about Vince Carter, or as they used to say on the call, Vincent Lamar Carter, what stands out to you most from his storied career with so many teams in the NBA?
There's so much about Vince Carter. Like, I feel like his brand was like almost larger than life. And I think, a lot of that has to do with the way that he impacted basketball in Canada and made basketball cool in Canada. And made really everybody like tap into the Raptors even more and like really start to like be passionate about the team and everything like that. But then, like to the common fan, he's like, he's Vinsanity for a reason, half man, half amazing for a reason. Like, the larger than life dunks and like the dunk contest, the best dunk contest, like arguably the best dunk contest performer of all time.
It is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, hey, depending on how people feel about 2016, the one that happened
in
Toronto.
That's fair. That's fair.
But like, he like is the dunk contest and he's, probably the best in-game dunker of all time as well. But then it goes beyond that too. Like, I almost don't think that like Vince Carter gets enough credit for the way that he reinvented himself and turned into a knockdown corner shooter that could, just be someone that for lack of a better term, like kind of just stood in the corner and got ready for when his time came and then came in and knocked down shots. Like, he's somebody whose career, like you said, 22 seasons, it was an NBA record until LeBron's going to tie it on Tuesday. But like, I don't think that he gets enough credit for what he did at the back end of his career and turning himself into somebody that, became a mentor, became a teammate, became someone who could kind of become an inspiration for former star players who need to reinvent themselves later in their career to stick around in the NBA. So for as great as he was as a dunker, as an all-star, as an all-NBA caliber player, he also deserves a lot of love for, what he did later in his career. And I mean, I think when you tie all those things together, that's what you get in the Hall of Famer Vince Carter.
Yeah, it's a Hall of Fame case. And I think I'm kind of piggybacking on your answer. I think back, I was really fortunate growing up to be able to go to a lot of NBA games. And one thing that comes to mind immediately that really does put it in perspective, because sometimes it's like the beauty of being a kid, but also like the funny part about being a kid. I think I was 9 or 10 years old. Raptors were in New Orleans, and watching Vince warm up, and this guy comes out with a stack of cards, and he comes out, he waves his kids down, and he just hands these like cards. Vince Carter had pre-autographed a bunch of cards because he didn't do autographs anymore because he was such a big deal on the road that he had to pass autographed cards out, which honestly, had I held on to it, probably would be worth a lot at this point in time.
Definitely.
But in my mind, I'm like, man, I want to interact with the player. But to think about like that level of phenomenon, for him to be the leading vote getter for a team that played in a different country than the rest of the NBA, when there were guys named Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan in the league at the same time as him, like I know Yao came in and kind of took that crown, but Vince being the leading vote getter speaks to who he was, the Nike Shocks that all of us thought that when you played in, they could make you jump like him. We thought wrong. But then, like you said, to bring it back around at the end of his career and to think about, what he was able to do and going from being the high flyer, a superstar to being like one of the best vets, arguably, honestly, the league has ever seen, in those back end years. So as we wrap that up real quick, I'm putting you on the spot. Can you name Vince Carter's 8 teams in order?
Oh man, in order. God, I mean, Toronto.
Yeah.
The Nets.
Yeah.
The Mavericks.
Ooh.
No.
Orlando.
Oh, Orlando. Right. The years they were going toe to toe with the C's. Yeah. Orlando. Then Dallas, and then
one more before Dallas.
Who?
Phoenix.
Oh man, I would not have gotten. I could have sat here and named 30 other teams in the NBA before I would have got to Phoenix.
Phoenix was the last
I
one.
completely forgot. I completely forgot about the Phoenix days, Dallas, and then I just remember there might have been. Did he play for like Sacramento somewhere in there?
Yeah, it was Memphis, Sacramento. Then he finished up with Atlanta.
And then I was going to say, I remember him finishing out in Atlanta because I had the pleasure of going to State Farm Arena in Atlanta to cover a game on Martin Luther King Day.
MLK Day.
And I had a pretty good side conversation with Vince Carter about Trae Young, and he was just talking about like what it's like being Trae Young's vet. And like that was a really cool moment for me because like Vince Carter is one of those guys who like, you know, he, again, like you said, like, you know, this is like almost like a hero. You just want to have a chance to talk to him. And like, now I'm like trying to like keep it together as like a media member and be like, try and act like this is like something that happens every day. But it's like, no, man, like Vince Carter, like I love Vince Carter as a kid and like being able to have that conversation about him. But the thing that I appreciated the most about it was that I wasn't really there to talk. I mean, at that stage in his career, he was, you know, he was the oldest dude on the team. He was the oldest dude in the league.
Oldest in the league.
It's like, so it was like, you know, at that point, he knew that people aren't really there to talk about like him and like what he has going on and everything like that. Like I was there really just to talk to him about what he sees in Trae Young, and he was more excited to talk about Trae Young than he was than he ever would have been to talk about himself. And you know, I just remember him giving me like a lot of like cool little like tidbits of information of ways that like, you know, how he was Trae Young's vet and like things that he would be like, oh, Trae, do this instead of that, and yada yada yada. So I all that to say, you know, I might have botched the order of teams that he played in, but I remember the Sacramento days after the Dallas days, and I knew he ended his career in Atlanta because I had that cool one-on-one experience with him.
No, man, you got to leave with that. That's a hell of a Vince Carter memory right there to just chop it up with him about Trae Young. And also a big shout out to him. He shouted Trae Young out during his Hall of Fame speech. So that speaks to the level of person and teammate that Vince Carter was.